I'm a bartender in Auckland, and this American woman walked into our pub last Thursday demanding service in dollars. She had New Zealand currency in her hand, but insisted we should accept USD because, and I'm quoting here, the dollar is the world's reserve currency. So technically, you're required to take it. When I explained we only accept NZD, she pulled out her phone and started reading Wikipedia articles about the Bretton Woods Agreement to prove her point. My manager had to step in when she threatened to call the American Embassy about our discriminatory currency policies. She eventually paid in local money but left a 1-star review saying we were anti-American for not accepting freedom. My cousin manages a hotel in Reykjavik, and he once had an American couple arrive at 2 a.m. demanding their room be ready, even though they'd booked for the following night. When the front desk clerk explained the booking was for tomorrow, the husband said, "Look, in America, if you pay for something, you get it immediately. That's called capitalism." The clerk showed them the confirmation email with the correct date, and the wife responded, "Well, this is confusing because Iceland doesn't observe time zones properly. Iceland has one time zone." They sat in the lobby for 6 hours, insisting the hotel was legally obligated to honor what they considered a time zone technicality. Eventually, they demanded a refund and wrote a blog post about how Icelandic hospitality was stuck in the pre-digital era. I'm a museum guide in Amsterdam, and an American tourist once asked me when we turn on the windmills for photos. I explained their historic structures, some still functional for their original purposes, not theme park props. He laughed and said, "Come on, they're obviously just for tourists. Like, do Dutch people actually believe they run on wind?" His wife jumped in, saying she'd read that European countries stage authentic experiences for American visitors because our tourism dollars are so valuable. They stood there for 20 minutes, waiting for the windmill to start its show cycle. When nothing happened, they complained to my supervisor that Dutch guides were intentionally withholding the windmill activation schedule from Americans to make them wait longer. That's the pattern everywhere, and it starts the moment they land. I'm a cashier at a grocery store in Stockholm. This American man started bagging his own groceries, then got annoyed when I didn't help. He said, "In real countries, the cashier bags your stuff. That's literally your job description." When I explained that customers bag their own groceries in Sweden, he responded, "That's just because Sweden hasn't figured out proper retail efficiency yet. In America, we invented customer service." He then insisted on speaking to a manager to complain about our self-service scam. The manager explained it's standard practice across all Nordic countries, and he replied, "Well, that explains why socialism doesn't work. You can't even afford baggers." He left his groceries on the counter and walked out muttering about how Swedes don't understand basic economics. My sister works at a pharmacy in Tokyo, and an American woman came in demanding her prescription be filled immediately without any paperwork. When my sister explained she needed a Japanese doctor's prescription, the woman said, "I'm a registered nurse in Florida, which means I'm qualified to prescribe internationally under the Geneva Convention." She pulled out her American nursing license and some printout about international medical recognition, which didn't say what she thought it said. My sister tried to explain Japanese pharmaceutical laws, but the woman cut her off saying, "This is exactly why America has the best healthcare. We trust our professionals." She then asked to speak with a doctor to override the bureaucracy. Security eventually escorted her out. When she started filming the interaction for what she called evidence of medical discrimination. I work at a post office in Copenhagen, and an American tourist tried to mail a package to Michigan without paying international shipping rates. He'd calculated the cost using USPS domestic rates and insisted that was the correct price. When I explained international shipping costs more, he said, "But I'm American, so it should cost the same as it does at home. That's how global postal unions work." He then pulled up the Universal Postal Union website and started reading sections that he claimed proved his point. None of them did. When I showed him our international rate card, he said, "This seems like price gouging. I'm going to report this to the American Postal Service." He eventually paid but demanded a written receipt for his congressman. 3 days later, he called asking why his package hadn't arrived yet, because he'd paid for what he thought was overnight international delivery. I'm a receptionist at a dental clinic in Wellington. And an American man called asking if we accepted his insurance from Blue Cross Blue Shield. When I explained we don't accept American insurance, he said, "That doesn't make sense. Insurance is insurance. It's a universal system." I clarified that he'd need to pay and submit a claim to his US insurer for reimbursement. And he responded, "So you're telling me that New Zealand doesn't participate in the international insurance network? That seems illegal." He then asked to speak to someone who understood how real insurance works. My supervisor explained the same thing, and he said, "This is why America leads the world in healthcare. We actually coordinate with providers." He showed up anyway, got treatment, and was shocked when we asked for payment. He left a review saying, "We scammed him by not accepting foreign insurance despite our obligations under WHO treaties." I'm a waiter at a restaurant in Prague. An American couple asked for the check after their meal, then sat there for 45 minutes. When I came back to clear the table, they were still sitting there chatting. I politely mentioned that we needed the table for other guests. The husband said, "In America, you don't rush paying customers. We're allowed to sit as long as we want after eating." I explained that table turnover is expected in Czech restaurants, and he responded, "That's because you haven't figured out proper restaurant economics. In America, we know that lingering customers create ambience," his wife added. "Plus we left a tip, so technically we've rented the space." The tip was €2 on a €60 meal. They finally left when I explained other customers were waiting, but not before writing a review about Prague's hostile dining culture. They claimed European restaurants were purposely rude to Americans to discourage tourism. My brother runs a cafe in Buenos Aires. An American woman ordered coffee with ice. When he explained we don't typically serve iced coffee, she said, "How do you not have ice? It's frozen water. Every country has ice." He offered to bring ice cubes separately, and she responded, "No, you need to make it properly, like Starbucks. This is basic cafe protocol." She then pulled up a Starbucks recipe on her phone and tried to show him how to make it. When he politely declined, she said, "This is why American coffee culture dominates globally. We actually innovate." She demanded to speak to the owner, who was my brother, and when he identified himself, she accused him of lying because no real cafe owner would refuse to serve iced coffee. She left and posted on social media about how Buenos Aires was stuck in the 1950s coffee-wise and how Argentinians were resistant to progress. I'm a server at a traditional restaurant in Marrakesh, and an American couple complained that we didn't have ranch dressing. The husband said, "Every restaurant in the world has ranch. It's a condiment standard." When I explained it wasn't common in Moroccan cuisine, he responded, "That seems like poor planning. Ranch goes with everything." His wife agreed, saying, "We always bring packets from home when we travel to countries that aren't up to speed yet." They then asked if I could make ranch from scratch. And when I said we didn't have the ingredients, the husband said, "So you're telling me you don't stock buttermilk, mayo, and dill? Those are refrigerator basics." I tried to explain our kitchen stocks traditional Moroccan ingredients, and he replied, "This is exactly why American cuisine is so dominant. We actually think about customer preferences." They ate their meal while loudly discussing how they'd fix Morocco's restaurant industry. If they lived here, my aunt owns a bakery in Lisbon, and an American man came in asking for a dozen donuts. When she explained we don't sell American-style donuts, he said, "But you're a bakery. Donuts are universal bakery items." She showed him our selection of pasties, danada, and other Portuguese pastries. And he responded, "These look like generic European pastries. Where's the real stuff?" When she explained these are traditional Portuguese specialties, he said, "I mean, they're fine, but donuts are what bakeries are known for globally. This seems like a missed opportunity." He then asked if she could make donuts if he came back tomorrow. And when she declined, he said, "This is why American bakeries dominate. We give customers what they actually want." He bought one pastel de nata, took a bite, and said, "It's okay, but it's no Krispy Kreme." He left a review saying Portuguese bakeries were overrated and lacking in variety. Later, his wife called asking if we could ship donuts to their hotel. I'm a train conductor in Switzerland, and an American family boarded without reservations on a fully booked route. When I asked them to move to unreserved seating, the father said, "We're paying customers. First come, first served." That's how trains work. I explained they needed reservations for those specific seats, and he responded, "That's a European thing. In America, trains don't require reservations because we respect passenger freedom." He then showed me his ticket, which clearly stated he needed reservations, and said this fine print doesn't count. It's deliberately confusing. His teenage son added, "Dad, maybe we should just move," but he replied, "No, son. This is about principle. Americans built the railroad system, so we understand how trains should work." When the passengers with actual reservations arrived, he accused them of cutting in line. He eventually moved, but spent the rest of the journey loudly explaining to his family how American trains were superior because they didn't have complicated European reservation schemes. I work at a car rental agency in Dublin, and an American customer insisted on driving on the right side of the road. When I reminded him that Ireland drives on the left, he said, "That's a British thing. Ireland is independent now, so you should have switched." I explained that driving on the left predates independence and is standard across Ireland. And he responded, "But it's dangerous and backwards. In America, we drive on the correct side." He then asked if there were American-style roads where he could drive normally. And when I said no, he replied, "So tourists are just expected to figure this out? That seems like a safety hazard." His wife suggested they take taxis instead, and he said, "No. We're not going to let Ireland's outdated traffic system control our vacation." He eventually took the car but came back 3 hours later with scrapes on the left side from hitting curbs. He blamed Irish road design and demanded a refund for what he called incompatible infrastructure. He left a review warning Americans about Ireland's refusal to modernize its traffic patterns. I'm a ticket agent in Oslo, and an American woman asked how to get to the Eiffel Tower. When I explained she was in Norway and the Eiffel Tower is in France, she said, "Yeah, but how long is the train ride? Everything's close in Europe." I pulled up a map showing the distance, and she responded, "That can't be right. I thought Europe was small." And I explained it would take over 24 hours by train, she said. "That seems excessive for countries that are practically neighbors. In America, you can drive from New York to Florida in a day." I clarified that Oslo to Paris is roughly 1,400 kilometers, and she replied, "But I've seen maps. Europe fits inside Texas. This doesn't add up." She then accused me of inflating distances to sell expensive flights and demanded to speak to someone who understood European geography properly. My supervisor showed her the same information, and she left muttering about how European maps were deliberately misleading to tourists. She later posted on Facebook about how Oslo transit workers were unhelpful to Americans. My uncle drives a taxi in Athens, and an American passenger asked him why Greeks don't just speak English to make things easier for tourists. When my uncle said most Greeks do speak English but prefer Greek in their own country, the passenger said, "But English is the global language. It's more efficient if everyone just uses it." My uncle explained that Greek has been spoken in Greece for thousands of years, and the passenger responded, "Yeah, but that's history. I'm talking about modern practicality." He then suggested that Greece should implement an English-first policy in tourist areas, like he claimed Singapore did. When my uncle pointed out that Greek is the official language, the passenger said, "That's fine for government stuff, but for business and tourism, English makes more sense. That's why American companies dominate globally." He then asked why Greek restaurant menus weren't automatically in English. And when my uncle said many have English translations, he replied, "But why isn't it the main menu? Americans are your biggest tourists." At the end of the ride, he tipped in dollars and said, "This should be worth more here anyway." It wasn't. I'm a hotel concierge in Bali. An American guest asked me to validate his entire worldview. He'd spent 2 weeks in Indonesia and was convinced he'd figured out how to fix our economy, traffic system, and cultural traditions. His solution involved implementing American business practices, teaching everyone English as a primary language, and replacing traditional foods with internationally recognized options. When I thanked him for his thoughts but explained we're quite fond of our culture, he said, "That's the problem with the developing world. You're resistant to progress," his wife agreed, adding that if more countries just followed the American model, global poverty would disappear. They checked out the next morning, leaving a review praising the hotel but criticizing Bali for not maximizing its potential. The review included a detailed plan for how Indonesia should restructure itself to better serve American tourists. 3 months later, they emailed asking if we'd implemented any of their suggestions yet. The pattern never stops. From currency to culture, there's this unwavering belief that the American way isn't just one option among many, but the default setting the rest of us are too stubborn or confused to adopt. And when reality doesn't bend to match that expectation, it's never the expectation that's wrong. It's the entire country they're visiting. Maybe that's why the world is learning to smile politely, nod, and just let them keep talking. Because eventually, they'll leave. We'll go back to doing things the way we've been doing them for centuries before they arrived. We'll continue long after they're gone.